Alright, so we are working on the front suspension of the Z31 today. This is an 86 turbo model. So as you can see, what we're doing is we're installing the Apex suspension front end control arms, the tension rod and adjustable front lower control arm set. We are reusing OEM knuckle and tie rod and brakes, spindle, all that is over there. Now I did get new shocks and lowering springs. Those are installed already. Well, I say new, they're used. Somebody totaled their car and I bought the suspension off of it. Had 86 front suspension, so I'm going to use his rotors, bearings, spindles, everything's all together. So this is just a direct. These are 17 millimeters that bolt there to the knuckle, and 17s that bolt it to the top hat. These are the electronic suspension top hats that I took off. So this is my junk pile. And this is the old front suspension. That ain't right. This ain't right. This is what I took off. Yeah. When those electronic shocks blow, don't keep driving on them. That was about 30,000 miles of driving downtown that did that to those shocks. So, noticing it wouldn't set right when dropping it from the jack, and that you could change the camber pretty drastically by hand, which isn't good. Surprisingly though, the car drove pretty much fine. I mean, it was bouncy like it had blown shocks, but it handled fine. Just handled like it had blown shocks. Anyways, in solving that, I got this new suspension and figured I might as well go ahead and upgrade my control arms while I'm at it. This is the side I've already assembled. So I will now take this apart and I will get this boot on here and this boot on here. And see, we want to grease this guy up, because we got to slip this over top. And you want to put some grease just inside of here. Just get some good globs of grease up on the inside. Fill it up. You don't want to fill it up all the way because it's going to ooze out when you push this on. And then you're going to have to push more into it. And let the games begin. Now you put it in through the side hole and then out the front hole. And then you just got to get your finger in here and just stretch it up and over. And as you can see, pops right over and on. And now you want to take some more grease and fill it in on the sides. Just squish it on in there, you know. This one's kind of fighting me for some reason on that, but whatever. If you get some in the middle, doesn't matter. Point is, you just want everything to be nice and greased up in there. Okay, now, this is important. I'm sure most of you will know how turnbuckle systems work and how this double turnbuckle works and how to adjust it properly. But just for the super noobs out there who might not know, I'm going to tell you anyways. I'm just going to show you. You can fast forward this part if you don't want to see it. But this is how you put the turnbuckle together properly. So you want to start this one just barely. See? Just barely. And then you want to take this one and start it just barely. And then once you've done that, now you take this center here and you turn it, and as you can see, that turns both of them in. Now we're centered up, and that will prevent one side from being deeper in than the other, because if you have one side deeper than the other, you end up with your threads being sketchy in one side, and that's how you end up with a failure. So let's prevent failures. They were nice enough to pre-anti-seize all of these threads for us. Apex Engineering is a pretty good company, actually. One of the best I've experienced with this type deal. Now you can see that some of the thread is not being used because it's covered up by this rubber, and that's okay because I want my control arms a little longer than factory anyways. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop this in. As you can see, just give it a little twist and push, and it pops right through the rubber gasket. Thanks to the grease. Bam. All right. Now we've got this ready to go on. It's not tight because we're going to make adjustments after the car is on the ground. Now because we have that lock nut all the way cinched down, that allows us to get this bar nice and evenly all the way down tight. So again, we don't have one end shorter than the other. Now I loosen it up a little so that this guy can clear better. Get us the angle we need out of it. Yeah. And now we turn this, which will relieve the pressure on these joints here. All right. Pull this together. Let's move over to the car. All right, now this will go this way. Actually, will not need the spacer anymore. Over here. That's part of the reason we're doing this control arm kit. Spacers hurt your geometry. They cause jacking by pushing the wheel too far out. Whereas this allows the wheel to stay in tighter to the center of rotation, which allows for the stock behavior of the suspension geometry without all that inset. Oh. Or running incredibly wide wheels, which actually is bad in the front. Now, that's staged. So next we need to install that little cup bracket. You actually need to put this on first. Nice clump of grease. But that acts as good thread lubricant. That will actually have to be tightened up before we can tighten down this part, because you'll see it blocks access. It's kind of a strange setup we've got going. I told you when we get to this part, so we got to put these 22s through to hold the lower control arm on. And you'll notice this steering rod with my busted boot, which I'll address later, is in the way. And that's because we have to turn the steering wheel all the way to lock. Now, you can see we've got clearance. Hopefully you can see it. Can't guarantee the view on this camera is perfect. I am using a head cam so that you can hopefully see what I'm seeing. And yes, I'll try to fix the light so it's not blinding. I'm sure that will fall. Yep, called it. Now, this is fun. So you have to put this through in a washer. The thick washers, 9/16. Then put that through. In the other washer. This is where it gets real fun. Because the alignment has to be pretty much spot on. There it goes. And you can see that droops down. Just for the heck of it, we'll set that on there. Now you'll see there's a little bit of space. Let me get this bolt started. Crown on here. Just so it won't fall off. You can see there's a little bit of extra space here, and that will get taken up when you tighten that bolt down. There probably should have been an extra spacer in the kit, but yeah, you can see it's about one spacer more that is needed thickness-wise. But God, I hate that dang kitty litter, but it's a necessary evil. Like I said, we got to tighten this guy down first. The 19. Tools get a little chaotic in here when I've got so much stuff going on. Now we can take this, set that there. We're going to go around to the front of the car. Yep, 24 and medium extension. Got that good. Want the nut on the inside. And that you want to line up over top there. And that there. Come through the hole. And again, I really like this impact for this with these nylon lock washers because it'll just drive them on there. And get it going again because that breaks in that nylon washer. All right. Now, I do need to take this. I remember this from the other side now. Need to take, this bolt out of here. What you're going to have to do is hold on to this at a downward angle like so. You can see where that slides into its home. Sheesh, this one's really tight. My impact is struggling. So, there you see the now completed. Alright, we tried doing it all in one cut, but I made a boo-boo. But through the magic of editing, that boo-boo is no more. So, now we've got our tension rod connected. Now we can slip this together. As I said, this interferes with alignment. There we go. That's how far out we need it to get that alignment to put the bolt in the hole. Now, as you can see, I am probably extended out about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, like maybe 20 millimeters. And like I said, my goal is to get rid of those spacers with my wheels, which are over there. Nice 3-piece wheels. I run staggered. Fronts are a 18 by 8, and the rears are an 18 by 10. Because with this McPherson suspension, you don't want too wide of a front tire, actually. There she blows, the 1/2 inch socket cap. Now we're tight. Christ. Some tough nylon. Alright, while we're here, go ahead and throw the Ugga-Duggas at these. There we go. Make sure you've got the hole lined up with the slot so that you can slide your cotter pin in. Now, those 22s come into play. The extension also. On this side, you can get away without the spacer, but on the other side, you're going to need the extension because you've got a bunch of hydraulic lines that run right through here, and that gets in the way, so you'll need this extension. But on this side, you don't need it. Turns out. Yeah, it seems a little harsh having to do it that way, but that's what it calls for. Since we're short of space, we're just gonna have to. You just have to pinch the subframe a little bit. But as you can see, slop is gone. Now all that's left is a sway bar link. Let's go get the link. Now remember, we have to disassemble this guy. Alright, now, for the sway bar link, you can see we've got this nut bolt amalgamation that we need to pinch the sway bar with. Now we gotta want to get this fairly tight. These are polyurethane bushings. Got the 14 spanner. There you go. You just want to get some tension on it. You don't want to really lock it down because you don't want to damage those bushings. Then you'll want to thread this on until you shore it up to the nut there. Now you can see which hole it's going to line up to, but sometimes because these bushings are so tight being polys, it can be a little difficult. I would prefer to shorten the tension rod, but unfortunately that's not an option. Alright, so because of this situation, I'm going to loosen this guy up again. I didn't have this situation on the other side because I could move the sway bar freely. I'm going to have to loosen this bushing up, get some play, get it in, and then tighten it up. There we go. There we go. Tap that in. Oh, wait. Let me check the other side. Make sure. So I believe I did it the opposite direction. Yes. That's what I thought. Socket cap on the outside, on the back side. Because you don't want interference with your tie rod or anything like that. Alright, cool. 14 and a socket cap. A small socket cap. So I'll go get that. Left it over here. Now, use the smaller wrench, but in my case I like using impact, so I got a little quarter drive impact. Yeehaw. Hey, so these nuts are like extra tight on these 14 millimeter wrenches. I don't think they're actually 14s. They probably are American sized. I don't like using imperial stuff. Alright, but now that we've done that, we can now retighten this. Bushing. Make sure your heims are centered, straight. You don't want them in bind. There we go. That is side 2 completely installed. Now all that's left is to put the coilover on, which on the Z31 we have an offset coilover. So in the front they actually are coilover, in the rear they're not actually coilover. Point is, see how looking straight down, let's get in better light, looking straight down you can see the line of the axle and the line of the coilover shock body are not in line, and that's on purpose. So it's very important that you get the right side on the right side and the left side on the left side. This would be the right side. You want the axle to be forward of the shock body. Alright, now it's time to put the strut on, and so you will see, I don't know if you can tell, but these two holes are closer than these two holes, or these two holes, so because it's asymmetrical you got to line it up. You can see these two are a little tighter together, so that's where they go. And I don't know where my assistant is going. Closer to the reds. Anyway, get an assistant because this guy is heavy and you got to get it up through the holes and then get them started. It is really quite a heavy unit. Like, extremely heavy. Now that you've got that on, you can push down on, you gotta get this to line up to where the nut for the ball joint goes in the ball joint hole, and like so. And now these 17 millimeter nuts and their lock washers, which I'm struggling to get a hold of. I'll slide up through here. Oops, these are the wrong ones. It is the shorter ones. The longer ones are for the brakes. The shorter ones are for the knuckles. And the struts, they're not going to thread on my hand very well because they're so nasty. Now, will you give me that black socket that's over there? Should only be one at this point.
Yeah, it's a 17.
Yeah, that's the one. Voila! We now have it completed. Side of the suspension. All that's left is the brakes. And those might be a fight to get on because these are not the original rotors. And they might be a little thicker. So mind that you rotate this sucker around so that she sits the way she used to with the wires, with the hoses. You don't want them pinched. Ah, good. Well, I guess this rotor's a little thinner. For whatever reason, I guess it's been cut down. And these are 19s that hold the caliper brackets on. They thread in pretty easily once you get them in line. And there we are. One completely assembled side of the car. All that's left is this little pain in the butt clip that holds in the brake line, which I do recommend you reuse, though it's not entirely necessary. That way, and just presses right in there. Nice and easy. Job done. What's left is to put the wheel on.